to U.S. culture. And we have three great presenters, and Dr. Cham, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, is going to tell you a little bit more about who they are. But that's basically what we're going to do today. The session will be 2 hours, or, well, it won't be 2 hours now. It'll be over at 4:30. So we will basically have three presentations, and then after all the presentations, we will have Q&A. When you are speaking for the Q&A, please make sure you push the white button when you speak, and when you're done, push the white button to turn it off. Okay, I think that might be it. A quick reminder, there are 3 more sessions after this session. The next session is also going to be one of those I don't want to miss sessions. It's on China and Africa, and you don't want to miss it. And it's October the 27th, China and Africa by Dr. Young Park, I believe, is that correct? Right here. And the one after that is Financing AIDS in Africa. And that's on November the 11th. And the last one, official one, is a colloquium in honor of Dr. Suleiman Yang. And our speaker is going to be Ali Mazari. And you don't want to miss that. And that is on November the 16th. Okay, so 3 more great sessions. But we are now in for, excuse me, a wonderful session. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mbai Cham, who is my supervisor and the chairman of the Department of African Studies here. And he's going to give you a little bit more information about our speakers and also moderate the session. Dr. Cham.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Wheeler. First of all, I would like to thank Wheeler. He's doing a real fantastic job managing this Palaver series, and we're really very thankful for the great job you're doing, Wheeler. Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome. This is a panel that is being sponsored by the West African Research Association, which is headquartered currently in Boston, Massachusetts, at Boston University. WARA, as the acronym is for West African Research Association, was formed in 1989, and its first headquarters was here at Howard University. 2 of our faculty members, one is retired and the other one is currently on board here, Jean Tungara, were the people who were running it from Howard University here. So in 2009, it came back to Howard, so to speak, in the sense that I became president of the association. So we're very, very happy to be, it's not working? Okay. We're very happy to be co-sponsoring or to be sponsoring this particular session here in association with the History and Political Science Department of Montgomery College. We had a fantastic session there this morning, and the African Studies Department in the College of Arts and Sciences here at Howard University. You all have some material in front of you that gives you some information about the West African Research Association. It is a very dynamic organization that is really doing great work, enabling research, facilitating research for scholars, American scholars who are interested in West Africa, as well as facilitating work for West African scholars who are also doing research in West Africa and other parts of Africa. So the mission of the organization is really geared towards facilitating these kinds of collaboration and partnerships between West African and American scholars. And the association is also, more importantly, part of a network, a broader network of American overseas research centers. And the council of that center is here in Washington, D.C. Now, WARA operates the West African Research Center, which is in Dakar, Senegal. And it's the only center that is part of the American Overseas Research Centers that is sited in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're very, very proud of the work that we've been doing, and would like to encourage you as much as possible to look very closely into the organization and consider coming on board as an individual member, or to encourage your various institutions to come on board as institutional memberships. There are many, many advantages to becoming a member of WARA and plugging into that network of the American Overseas Research Centers. And today we are very, very glad and honored to have actually a representative from the American Overseas, the council that runs the AORC here. That's Monica Clark. Monica, if you can just stand up. And Monica actually is the one who also funded this particular series here through a grant from the Carnegie Foundation. So we're very glad to have her here with us. Thank you. We think that this particular session here is coming at a time when, at a very opportune time, because there's a lot of heat, really, about Islam, about Muslims, about religion, and what we need is really more light. And what we have assembled here this afternoon is a group of scholars who are going to share with us their tremendous experience, their wealth of experience, the kind of work, very innovative, very cutting-edge work that they have been doing on various aspects of the Islamic experience, the Muslim experience, not just in Africa, but also in the United States here. So we're very, very glad to be able to host this particular session here, and we hope that we'll have enough time after their presentations to engage them in very, very productive ways. I'm going to start introducing them in the order that they will be speaking. First of all, on my extreme left, we have Dr. Erin August, who is Associate Professor of Sociology and Africana Studies at Ramapo College of New Jersey, where she teaches courses on race relations, gender, and religion. Her research focuses on young women who joined conservative Islamic reform movements in West Africa. She also studies the life experiences and gender roles of North African migrants to Senegal and West African migrants to New York City. She's currently completing a book on reformist Muslim women in Dakar, Senegal. Erin will be followed by Dr. Ousseina Alidou, who is originally from Niger and is currently director of the African Studies Center at Rutgers University in New Brunswick. Dr. Alidou holds a PhD in theoretical linguistics with a minor in African Studies and Literacy from Indiana University in Bloomington. She has transdisciplinary research orientation with a focus on linguistics, cultural politics, and gender studies. She's the author of Engaging Modernity, Muslim Women and Politics of Agency, which was published in 2005, and the co-editor of 1,000 Flowers, The Struggle for Education in African Universities. And Ousseina will be followed finally by Dr. Fallou Ngom, who hails from Senegal. And Fallou is an associate professor of anthropology and director of the African Language Program at Boston University. His current research interests include the interactions between African languages and non-African languages, the Africanization of Islam, the Ajami literature's records of West African languages written in the Arabic script. He also hopes to help train the first generation of American scholars to have direct access to the wealth of knowledge stored in West African Ajami literatures. His work has appeared in the International Journal of the Sociology of Language, the Journal of Multilingual and Multicultural Development, Language Variation and Change, and African Studies Review, among many others. Dr. Ngom received a very, very prestigious fellowship this year, and we were very, very proud for his achievement as a young man, the Guggenheim Fellow for 2011 and 2012. So, congratulations, Fallou. So it's really a very, very great honor and pleasure for us to have this distinguished group be with us here at Howard University this afternoon to share with us their experiences. So I'll turn over the mic to Dr. Urgis.
Okay, hello. I would first like to thank Dr. Mbai Cham and Dr. Wheeler Winston, as well as the other organizers of this panel, as well as you all for coming. It's such a pleasure to be here today. It's my first time visiting Howard University. I'll talk about my current research on conservative Muslim women and marriage in Dakar, Senegal, and then I will close with some observations on a few challenges marriage and immigration in the West pose to Senegalese Muslim women, in addition to the ways they confront these challenges here in the United States. I will raise some questions that inform my own research interests in transnational families, and which might also be of interest to those of you here who are conducting or planning research in the many important African immigrant communities in DC. The paper I will present to you today is primarily an endeavor to diversify understandings of Sunni reformist Muslim women's gendered forms of agency. Sunni reformists are conservative Muslims who contend that Islamic practice should not deviate from what is recommended in the Quran and Hadiths, or authenticated traditions of the Prophet Muhammad and his companions. Sunni reformers ostensibly oppose the practices of Muslims who adhere to Sufi traditions, which include religious music, chanting, worship at the tombs of saints, and membership in religious brotherhoods. Sunni reformers also advocate Arabic literacy and uphold, in Senegal at least, Arabized customs that they perceive as representative of original, pure Islamic religiosity, which for women do include veiling and reserve around men. Nonetheless, Senegalese Sunnite women's agency can be political, spiritual, social, and occasionally transgressive of established conservative Islamic norms for women's emotions. In 12 years of narrative interviews I have conducted with female members of 8 reformist organizations in Dakar, I have listened to women articulate multiple means of self-determination. Besides continually adding to my study new respondents who represent the increasing diversity of Dakar's conservative Sunni or Sunnite organizations, I have maintained regular contact with 12 women who participated in my original study from 1998 to 2000, when they were single and students in their late teens and early 20s. Upon each of my return trips to Senegal, I have interviewed them again, recording changes in their perceptions of their lives and of their activism. These 12 women, all highly educated in French or Franco-Arab schools, are of upper middle socioeconomic status in Dakar. They are not representative of all the women in my larger study, which draws from the Sunnites' highly diverse class and educational composition. It is, however, no accident that I remained closest to these 12 women. Their access to email and cell phones in the early years following my first study made it easy for us to stay in touch. They are now old friends as well as my respondents. They trust my promise to completely disguise their identities and any recognizable details of their lives, and the narratives I use in my research are exclusively circumscribed by our time together around a tape recorder, pen, and notebook. Of these 12 women, all have been married except one, 4 have been divorced, and 6 live in polygamous unions. Although I do not know if the incidence of divorce and polygamy in this group is representative of the experiences of all Sunnite women, I am struck by the high degree of marital dissatisfaction that they relate, given the strong emphasis Sunnite culture places on obedient and docile wives, and the movement's defense of men's rights to polygamy in Senegal. Also surprising is the contrast between my respondents' narratives today and their highly idealistic narratives of marriage in the early years of my research with them. Certainly many Sunnite women are happily married, and many who are in polygamous unions carve out intimate emotional spaces that they share with their husbands and children while maintaining friendly relations with their co-wives. It is not out of prurient interest or a desire to criticize Islam that I explore other Sunnite women's unhappiness or resistance when it occurs in their marriages. I am interested in their feelings from the standpoint that their sentiments and reactions comprise a fourth space of feminine agency that has yet been neglected by current trends in the scholarly literature on Islam. In this paper, I hypothesize that the source of my respondents' disappointments is the contradiction of their hopes for romantic love and their sense of autonomy spurred by education and career successes versus upper middle class Sunnite men's choices to take second wives earlier in their marriages to their first wives, along with the premium Sunnite culture places on female docility. It is this psychic space of disappointment and anger that I call emotional transgression, which may represent a fourth form of agency in Sunnite women's lives in addition to their spiritual, political, and social self-determination. Agency is commonly understood in the social sciences to be the ability to realize one's goals against the constraints of a hegemonic power. In the late 1990s, a spate of research on conservative Muslim women emerged, detailing their successes in employing Islam to win influence over men, assert themselves in the workplace, and promote political parties that furthered their economic interests. These analyses mostly ignored the question of spiritual sentiment, relegating religion to mere decoration for what were seen as women's liberatory and rationalist endeavors. In 2001, Saba Mahmood, the author of The Politics of Piety, reversed the terms of this debate when in her study of Cairo's Muslim revivalist women, she challenged scholars' assumptions that agency required defiance of norms, charging that this represented a secular liberal bias often blindly applied by Western scholars. For Mahmood, all forms of desire, including the desire for individual liberation, are contextually based social constructs. Like Foucault and the feminist theorist Judith Butler, she argues that the subject does not precede social norms. The very processes which establish a subject's subordination are the means by which he or she becomes a self-conscious identity and agent. But, unlike Butler, Mahmood does not find the subject's agency in the performative errors and reappropriations that actually challenge hegemony. For Mahmood, inhabiting, performing, and experiencing norms as they are opposed from above can be agency. It is the Kairen women's consistent and conscious efforts to train their impulses and sentiments to an Islamic ethics of docility that represents their agency, not an intentionally political act. The political aspects of their religious activism, such as destabilizing gender hierarchies in the home or disconcerting the secular state, are unintended effects of their endeavors to become more pious in Mahmoud's perspective. In contrast to the Kairen women in Mahmoud's study, Senegal's Sunnite women exercise overt political agency, defying Sufi influences and vocally challenging the state's secular policies on the family. They also devise spiritual agency, finding closeness to God and personal solace through rituals such as prayer, Quranic study, and veiling. Third, Sunnite women reap a number of social benefits from their status as veiled and pious women, pious Muslims, such as creating friendship and employment networks in addition to new opportunities to marry. Young single Sunnites of both genders enact clearly defined scripts of Islamic gender relations, looking down when addressing one another, lowering their voices, and smiling shyly at the ground, calling each other frère or brother or sœur or sister. In one of the Sunnite student associations at the University of Dakar, I have frequently observed young women enacting obedience to their male counterparts, shushing themselves and apologizing after the stern face of a 20-year-old frère appears at the curtain of the women's room of the mosque to chastise them for their raucous laughter and conversation. For their parts, young Sunnite men engage in brief but very serious courtships of a female adherent, typically in public or accompanied by a chaperone, usually another frère or sœur, and then request her hand in marriage. Because many young Sunnites advocate against the bride price and they oppose expensive weddings as sacrilegious, early marriage has been frequent among them. In this system, Sunnite women avoid the treachery of the predatory dating scene in Dakar, characterized by young men who pressure young women for sex, and by young women who relinquish their virginity in search of material support, sometimes from multiple boyfriends. Young female Sunnites often blend the possibility of rapid and early marriages with feelings of deep romantic love for Sunnite men. As James Jasper points out, notions of self, love, and relationships are often key aspects of contemporary social movement participation. As the duties of a pious and obedient wife are one of the most popular topics in sermons and radio shows by Sunnite leaders, young female adherents frequently engage in conversations with one another, discussing the religious legality of polygamy and the spiritual beliefs of accepting it, the spiritual benefits of accepting it. In their efforts to prepare themselves psychologically for the addition of a second wife, they also articulate their hopes that their co-wives will be Sunnite as well, since Sunnite women are seen to respect polygamy and would therefore not cause disharmony in the family unit. My long-term respondents' idealization of marriage has not changed since their younger days, and they still claim that they do not oppose polygamy in principle. Yet what is striking in the stories of their married lives is the consistency with which they articulate conflicted, hurt, and angry feelings about polygamy. They do not seem to achieve the same sense of resolution as Mahmoud's Egyptian respondents, who retrain their frustrated sentiments about their husbands back towards docility. I will now present to you 3 of my respondents' narratives, which reveal their feelings of ongoing internal conflict. In January 2010, when I asked Ida, a seamstress educated in the Franco-Arab system who makes a good living sewing intricately embroidered veils and chadors, how she felt about the possibility of polygamy in her marriage, she replied, "Nobody likes it, but what can we do? It's the way things are here. The Quran says polygamy is not an obligation for men, but the young men here make it an obligation." Her tone was insistent as she spoke, and by her words, "make it an obligation," she implied that the young men in her midst did not become polygamous out of religious sentiment, but out of selfishness. She continued, "I have spoken to my husband about the chance that he might take a second wife someday, and he has said that this does not concern him for now. For now." In repeating the word "now," Ida registered her frustration that her husband could change his mind in the future and that she would have no say in this decision. Hawa, unlike Ida, had already found herself in, I should actually make a caveat here. Within the Islamic law, it's possible for a woman to voice her preference with respect to polygamy. It is not necessary, however, that the husband agree with the woman's preference. And in many of the research, in many of the cases that I have looked at, the young men have gone ahead with the marriage despite their first wives' concerns. Hawa, unlike Ida, had already found herself in a polygamous situation when I interviewed her this past January. Hawa is a 29-year-old accountant for the Ministry of Health, and she is currently studying for her master's degree. She explained, "I didn't know this polygamous way of life. My father was not polygamous. He was only married to my mother. My husband let me know that he was taking steps to take another wife, and I was opposed to it. I was very sad. I was never against polygamy per se. I had a little bit of doubt that maybe my husband would love her more than me. My husband said, 'Well, I will set up a meeting between the 3 of us so you can get to know her, and you will see that she has no problem. She'll never take your place.' He set up a meeting for us in the garden of the Place de l'Indépendance. I had seen her one other time at a baptism. My husband presented her as a friend, but I didn't know she would become my co-wife. When my husband told me he was going to take a second wife, I said, 'Why do you need to do that? We've only been married 5 years.' He said, 'That is not the question. It's not a question of love. I want to do it, so I'm going to do it, but it's not because I love you less.' But when we got to the Place de l'Indépendance, I did not want to talk to her. She asked me, 'What's wrong? It's like you're putting on a caractère.' She said, 'I'm not coming to take your place.